The soft blue dress flowed around Elena Moore's frame like a whispered promise. She had spent 3 weeks of salary on it and hours choosing the perfect hairstyle, all for tonight. Travis had told her it would be a special evening, something that would change everything. Elena believed with all her heart that this would be the second, more proper proposal. The first time, they had gotten engaged during a spontaneous night with a modest ring, but Travis had said he would do it right when the moment was perfect. And she believed tonight was that moment. She checked her reflection in the hallway mirror of the Marceline Hotel, a place as old as it was expensive, with marble floors and cascading crystal chandeliers. Her heart pounded as the elevator rose toward the 18th floor, where Travis had booked a room. Room 1810. His message had read, "Meet me here, my love. Tonight is the beginning of everything." Elena knocked with a hopeful smile, but the door didn't reveal the familiar face of the man she loved. Instead, an older man stood there, silver-haled, sharp-eyed, wrapped in a silk robe. His gaze raked down her body with shameless deliberation. "Well, well, Travis was right. You're stunning," he said, voice rough like gravel. "Come in, Elena. We've got the whole night ahead." She froze. "I'm sorry, I'm looking for Travis Bennett. He told me to meet him here." "To be precise," the man said with a thin smile, "you're the gift he promised me in exchange for an investment." His name, she'd later learn, was Victor Lang. $2 million isn't cheap, but looking at you now, I'd say I'm getting a bargain. Elena's vision blurred. The room spun. She stepped back, her voice shaking. "No, that's not possible. He wouldn't." "You're so naive, sweetheart." Victor stepped forward, reaching for her arm. She recoiled, but he kept moving. "He told me you might resist at first, but you'll come around." She trembled. There were no screams, no theatrics, only instinct. "Run." She turned, heels pounding against marble, and bolted down the hallway. His voice echoed behind her. "If you leave, he loses everything, so do you." She didn't care. Nothing mattered more than escaping. By the time she burst out the hotel doors, the rain had begun. Cold water mixed with tears, soaking her dress and gluing it to her skin. Her styled curls collapsed into a tangled mess. Elena wandered the streets lost, shivering, heart shattering into pieces. Travis, the man who once promised to protect her, had sold her like a commodity. And the worst part? She had truly believed he loved her. She didn't know how far she had walked or for how long. All she knew was that her feet kept moving, away from the nightmare her heart hadn't yet escaped. The rain danced across the cobblestone streets of the French Quarter, turning the city into a hazy watercolor of shadows and lights. Elena's heels clacked softly with each step, her soaked dress clinging to her body like a second skin. Travis had sold her. Without warning, without guilt. She had thought she was smart. How could she have been so blind? A car horn snapped her back. A silver SUV braked hard, stopping just feet away. The window rolled down. "Are you all right?" the man asked. His voice was deep, a little raspy, but not pushy, not pitying, just real. Elena said nothing. Rain streamed from her jawline into her blouse. Her eyes, red and hollow, locked on his. He stepped out. A black umbrella opened above them, shielding her from the storm. "You don't have to talk," he said gently. "I just couldn't drive past and pretend I didn't see you." She looked into his eyes, steel blue and tired, not judgmental, just understanding. "Do you have somewhere to go?" She shook her head. "All right." He slipped off his coat and gently draped it over her shoulders. "I'm a doctor, Julian Hart. I don't mean you harm. I just want to get you out of the rain." She shivered but didn't pull away. The coat felt warm, not just in temperature, but in safety. How long had it been since she felt safe? "My car's just there," Julian said. "If you want, I can take you to a cafe nearby. Bright, warm, public. You can leave any time." Elena blinked, then, slowly, nodded. The SUV was warm, spotless, calm, like the man driving it. Julian didn't press her with questions. No side glances, no small talk, just silence, the kind Elena needed. She leaned her head against the cool window, listening to the rain beat gently on the glass. The cafe, Saint's Rest, sat on a quiet corner. Its amber lights and the scent of cinnamon from within nearly made her cry. They sat at the far corner. Julian ordered ginger tea for her, black coffee for himself. He didn't ask for her name, didn't ask what happened, just stayed, occasionally sliding over a napkin or gently placing the cup within reach. "Thank you," she whispered at last, voice hollow. Julian smiled slightly. "No need. No one deserves to be alone in a storm like that." Elena looked up. There was something in his voice, kindness not forced, as if he, too, had known what it felt like to break. "Did you lose someone?" she asked, voice dry as winter air. Julian nodded. "My wife, 3 years ago suddenly." He said no more. She didn't ask. Some pains don't need retelling. As the tea cooled and the rains softened, she finally said, "My name's Elena." Julian met her eyes. "It's a pleasure, Elena." For the first time that night, she smiled. Barely, briefly, but truly. Maybe she wasn't completely shattered. Maybe, on this night of betrayal and rain, she had found one small, quiet piece of peace. Elena didn't return home immediately that night. She stayed at Saint's Rest Cafe until nearly midnight, when Julian finally drove her to her parents' house on the city's southern edge. She didn't say much during the ride. He didn't press. What they shared were just quiet glances, a soft nod, and a simple good night. The next morning, she woke up in her old bedroom, walls still lined with the paintings and poems she'd created in her teenage years. Everything was the same, but she was not. The wound from the night before was still raw, but what confused her even more was this. She didn't just think about Travis. She remembered Julian's eyes. His coat still hung on the chair, neatly placed by her mother. Every time she passed it, she stared at it like a strange symbol of survival. Not love, not hope, not yet, but proof that someone had shown up when she needed them most and didn't let her fall apart. For the next week, Elena didn't leave the house. She avoided social media, didn't answer messages. Travis called dozens of times. She turned off her phone. No apology could fix the fear and humiliation that consumed her day by day. One morning, her mother handed her the mail. Among the letters was a small package, wrapped in brown, graphed paper, no return address. Inside was a worn book, Jane Eyre, 1978 edition, the one she had once called her first love in literature during a passing classroom conversation. There was no note, just a faint fingerprint on the cover. Elena stared at the book, heart thudding. Was it him? Was it Julian? In the days that followed, more small gifts arrived. A bundle of dried lavender, a leather bookmark carved with a star, a postcard with a quote from Emily Dickinson. No name, but she knew. Instinct whispered it. Only one person could have chosen such small, perfect things with such thought. Not Travis, never Travis. Elena started writing again. Not for anyone else, just for herself. Journal entries, letters to her future self, short stories about a woman betrayed but not broken. She didn't give the character a name, but in every line, Julian's quiet, steady presence lingered. He was the silhouette in the margins. Each morning, she'd sit on the porch, wrapped in his coat, reading. Sometimes she wondered if he still remembered her, but deep down she knew he didn't need to be there all the time to prove it. Julian Hart was the kind of man who didn't walk into someone's life unless he meant to stay, and Elena began to realize some people don't come to love you right away. They come to help you rise, to remind you that goodness still exists, to remind you that even shattered, you are still worth loving. The rain had stopped for 2 weeks, but Elena still wrapped herself in that heavy coat every time she sat on the porch to read. Not because of the cold, but because it felt like an invisible shield between her and the world she was no longer sure how to face. On a quiet Saturday afternoon, with sunlight pouring through the oak trees, Alina made her first trip out in weeks. Not to a crowded place, just a visit to her favorite old bookstore, Madeline's Corner, tucked into a quiet street of the French Quarter. A place where time seemed to slow down, steeped in the scent of old paper and soft classical music. She walked in. The bell above the door chimed softly. The air inside hadn't changed. Warm, wooden, worn in. Alina ran her fingers over the spines of books, reconnecting with a long-lost ritual. And then she saw him. Julian Hart stood at the front counter, holding a Hemingway novel, brows furrowed as if deciding whether he'd read it before. He wore a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, and his gaze, steady and unreadable, still carried that same quiet gravity that had once steadied her storm. Alina instinctively took a step back. Part of her wasn't ready, but just then Julian looked up. He recognized her instantly, but instead of rushing over or acting surprised, he simply smiled, softly, calmly. "Hello, Elena," he said, like they'd spoken just yesterday. "Hi, Julian," she nodded, her voice faltering. "It's been a while," he nodded. "I still leave Jane Eyre on the classics shelf. You said it's always the first place you check." Elena chuckled softly, a sound that surprised even herself. "You remember the little things." With the right people, Julian said, there are no little things. They stood in silence, not awkward, just the kind that only exists between two people who've shared something unspoken. "How are you?" he asked, eyes gentle but never intrusive. "I think I'm learning how to be okay," she said. "Not always easy, but each day I wake a little earlier, breathe a little deeper." "I'm glad to hear that," Julian replied. "And you?" she asked. "Still at the hospital?" "Still there," he smiled. "Hearts are still beating, so I still have work to do." That made her laugh, really laugh, for the first time in weeks. "Coffee?" he offered, gesturing to the cafe at the corner. She hesitated just a beat, then nodded. They sat at a small table outside, the sunlight stretching long shadows across the sidewalk. The city's quiet hum softened around them. Their conversation flowed slowly, unhurried, unforced. Julian spoke about recent surgeries, patients who stayed with him. Elena spoke of the pages she'd been writing, not for anyone, just to survive each day. When the coffee was nearly gone, Julian tilted his head and asked gently, "Can I walk you home?" Elena was quiet a moment, then said, "You know, when I got that book, I thought, maybe I can trust someone again. I wasn't ready then, but now—" She met his eyes. "I think I'd like to try, just once, with the person who stayed when I had nothing left." Julian didn't answer right away. He just placed his hand on the table, palm up, an open invitation, no rush, no pressure. Elena placed hers on top of his. As the light faded completely, they rose together, no promises, no labels, just one truth. The door had opened again. And this time, Elena walked through it on her own. There were no clear milestones in their relationship, no official first handhold, no romantic posts online. Everything between Elena and Julian felt like breathing, natural, effortless, happening before they even realized it. They met a few times a week, sometimes only to sit in quiet together. Julian would bring her old books or cinnamon rolls from the bakery at the corner. Elena began to carry short stories she'd written, reading them aloud during late afternoons beneath the trees. There was something healing about Julian's presence. He didn't ask for anything, didn't rush, and for the first time in years, Elena felt seen. Not for how much she gave or how well she hid her wounds, but for who she truly was. That afternoon, they sat on a wooden bench in Oak Ridge Park, where the maple trees had begun to turn. Leaves fell slowly around them like a scene from an old film. Elena was talking about a former student who had emailed her to thank her for teaching him to love literature, when Julian suddenly turned. "Elena," he said, voice soft as wind, "I think I've fallen in love with you." She froze. The story left her mind like a page torn from a book. She looked at him, eyes wide with both surprise and fear. "Julian," she said quietly, "you shouldn't have said that." "Why not?" "Because," her hands clenched in her lap, "because I don't know if I can believe that. Not you, me. I don't believe someone could love someone like me." Julian didn't respond right away. He simply looked at her. Not alarmed, not hurt, just gently, sadly. "I don't love you because you're perfect," he said. "I love you because you're real. And whether you believe it or not, that love is still here." Elena stood up, not in anger, but because the fear rose too quickly inside her. Her heart pounded. Old images crashed back like a tidal wave. Travis, the hotel room, that mocking laugh, the shame of being betrayed. "I'm sorry," she whispered, taking a step back. "I can't. Not right now." Julian rose, but didn't follow. "I understand," he said. "I won't pressure you. But I'll be here. Whenever you're ready." She turned and walked away, tears streaming down her face. Every step was a war between hope and fear, between wanting to believe and being terrified of breaking again. That night, Elena curled up in bed, listening to a voice recording of a poem she once read to Julian. "Maybe I am not hard to love. Maybe I was just loving those who didn't know how." And her heart ached. Not because Julian loved her, but because she didn't know how to believe she deserved it. In the days that followed, Elena tried to live as if nothing had happened. She woke early, drank tea, scribbled a few lines in her notebook, took walks around the neighborhood. Each step reminded her that she was still here, still breathing, but within the rhythm of her days there was a quiet ache she couldn't name. An emptiness shaped like Julian. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up. Just as he said, "I'll be here when you're ready." Only now, Elena realized, his silence wasn't gentle. It echoed. She missed him. His raspy laugh when he talked about the hospital. The warmth in his eyes when she read something aloud. The way he handed her ginger tea without needing to ask. And she missed herself when she was with him. A version of Elena that wasn't merely surviving, but alive. One morning, she returned to Madeline's corner. The Jane Eyre copy still sat on the classics shelf, but this time, no postcard, no lavender, nothing. Elena sat on the old wooden bench, her fingers trembling slightly. She realized she had grown so used to his quiet presence in the smallest things that without them, she felt like a piece of herself was missing. "I didn't run because I didn't believe he loved me," she wrote in her journal. "I ran because I didn't know what to do if he really did." That evening, her best friend Marisol stopped by. "Elena," Marisol said, setting a coffee mug on the table, "you can't keep hiding like this. I've seen the way you look at Julian. That's not someone you just care about." "But what if I'm not good enough for him?" Elena whispered, eyes brimming. "You don't have to be enough of anything," Marisol replied. "You just have to be you. If anyone deserves to love you in your brokenness, it's Julian. And if you keep hesitating, Elena, maybe you're the one hurting him now, not your past." The words hit like a stone in her chest. That night, Elena stayed up late, rereading every journal entry she'd written about Julian. Not a single line was indifferent. Not one was unsure. Her heart had chosen him long ago, but her mind, scarred and scared, had kept her from admitting it. Now she knew. Love doesn't always come when we're ready. Sometimes it comes to make us ready. It rained again on Friday night. Not a heavy storm like the one when they first met, but a slow, lingering rain. Like the sky, too, was missing someone. Elena sat by the window, watching each drop trace lines down the glass. She had never liked rain, but tonight it felt different, softer, like a whisper, a call. She stood, took Julian's old coat from the hook and wrapped it around herself. She didn't overthink it. One single thought pulsed in her mind. If he's still waiting, don't make him wait any longer. Elena stepped outside, into the rain. No umbrella. She didn't need it. She wanted to feel everything. Streetlights cast soft gold over her soaked hair. Her footsteps echoed on the wet pavement. Strangers glanced at her, a woman running through the rain with fire in her eyes. But Elena didn't care. She had never been more certain. She wouldn't let a man like Julian walk out of her life. When she reached his apartment, she didn't knock right away. She stood there, breathless, her heart thudding as if it might shatter with the first word. Then she raised her hand and knocked 3 times. The door opened. Julian stood there, not shocked, not saying anything. He just looked at her, drenched, shivering, but with a steadiness in her gaze that he'd never seen before. "Elena," he whispered, but she cut him off. "Don't say anything," she murmured, stepping under the hallway light. "Let me speak first, this time." Julia nodded and stepped aside. She walked in, still trembling, still breathless, but with a fire inside her stronger than her fear. "I was wrong to run," she began, "wrong to let the past speak louder than my heart. But Julian, I missed you. I missed how you just stayed, quietly, without pressure, without demands. I missed every little thing you did that never asked for thanks." Julian looked at her, his eyes soft, not with forgiveness, but understanding. "Elena," he began, but she stepped closer, continued. "I love you," she said clearly, surely, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. "Not because you saved me, not because I needed someone, but because when I'm with you, I don't have to be anything else but myself. And for the first time, I believe I'm worthy of that love." The air in the apartment felt still. They stood there, the rain whispering softly outside the window. Julian raised a hand, brushing a drop, rain or tear, from her cheek. "I never stopped loving you," he said, voice soft as wind. Then he pulled her into his arms, not urgently, not fiercely, but with a steadiness that could hold every shattered part of her together. Elena rested her head against his chest, listening to the deep, even rhythm of his heart. That heart had been waiting for her all along. Love after the storm wasn't loud. It grew like a new sprout, quiet but strong. Julian and Elena began seeing each other more regularly. Peaceful breakfasts, afternoons spent reading in the park, silent but full evenings sitting side by side. Elena had begun to accept love, not as a sudden miracle, but as something natural, something arriving when it was meant to. Then one day, Elena's mother invited Julian to dinner. "Just a simple meal," she said. "After all, I should meet the man who makes my daughter smile this much." Elena was anxious all week, not because of her mother, but because of her father. He had never said it aloud, but Elena knew he hadn't forgiven her for the engagement to Travis. To him, it had been weakness, a stain on his pride as a father. That evening, the dinner table was neatly set, lights soft, the scent of warm food filling the air. Julian arrived right on time, bringing carnations for her mother and a bottle of red wine for her father. Her mother smiled warmly. Her father only nodded, short, distant. Dinner passed slowly. Elena felt tension in every inch of her. She feared her father's gaze, feared the questions that might sound polite but cut deep. Then came the one she dreaded most. "What exactly do you plan to do with my daughter?" he asked, placing down his glass, voice calm but firm. Julian lifted his head, meeting his gaze directly, not with defiance but with sincerity. "I don't have grand plans at the moment," he said. "I just want to love her. Day by day, the best way I know how." Silence fell, the kind so thick you could hear the ticking clock. Elena's hand clenched under the table, but then something unexpected happened. Her father nodded. Slowly. "Then do your best to keep that promise," he said. "No smile, but no chill either." That night, as they walked away from the house, Elena gripped Julian's hand tightly. "I never thought I could have this," she whispered. "Have what?" "Someone who doesn't just love me," she said, "but chooses to step into my past, and isn't afraid of it." Julian squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not afraid of your past, Elena. I'm only afraid that one day I wouldn't be the one beside you." She looked up at him, her eyes glowing in the night. "You will always be that one," she said. Life after that family dinner unfolded like a gentle dream. Julian and Elena didn't rush, didn't need grand gestures, but what they shared grew deeper by the day, steady, bright, like morning light. Until one Thursday afternoon. Elena was in the middle of teaching when her phone buzzed non-stop in her pocket. She ignored it. Then the name Marisol popped up for the third time. She excused herself and stepped outside to answer. Within 10 seconds, all the breath left her body. Elena, Julian was in an accident. He's in the ER. She didn't remember leaving school, just the rain beginning to fall, again. Rain always returned when her heart was about to break. She hated hospitals, the cold antiseptic smell, the blinding white lights. But now, this place held her entire world. Marisol met her in the hallway, eyes red and swollen. He was hit crossing the street near the pharmacy. Head trauma. He hasn't woken up. Elena said nothing, didn't cry. She walked into the ICU like a ghost. Julian lay there, still, tubes everywhere, his warm features pale and lifeless. "Julian," she whispered, sitting beside him. "You promised you wouldn't leave, remember?" She took his hand, cold but still his, still the hand that had once wiped tears from her face in the first rain. The next hours were hell. The doctor said he needed time, could be hours, days, or worse. She went home near dawn, drained but unable to sleep. Sitting at her desk, she opened her journal and wrote her first line in weeks. "If you don't wake up, I won't forgive this world. But if you do, I won't let you go again." Day 2 passed. No change. Day 3, still nothing. Elena started reading to him. Every page she'd written. Every hidden line. She read as if her voice alone could bring him back. "Julian, you know," she whispered, "I never believed I deserved to be loved, but you taught me how to believe. Now it's my turn to hold on to you." On the afternoon of day 4, just as she finished reading a poem, his finger twitched. Elena froze. "Julian?" she called, heart racing. A fro, a soft sigh, and those eyes, the ones she feared she'd never see again, slowly opened. "There you are," he whispered. And this time, she didn't cry from pain. She cried because she knew real love isn't easy to find. But if you wait long enough, it never leaves. A year later, it rained again. Not a sad rain or a storm, just a soft morning drizzle, falling gently on the rooftop, blending with the scent of coffee and the faint music playing in their small kitchen. Elena poured tea for Julian. He sat at the table, reading an old novel, one leg still lightly bandaged, the final reminder of last year's accident. "Should I add more honey?" she asked, her movements now second nature. "A little more," he smiled, eyes still on the page. "You always know just enough." Their life wasn't loud. No diamond ring, no grand wedding. They weren't married yet, no house of their own, no plans 3 years ahead. But they had each other, every day, in the smallest gestures, in quiet glances, and sometimes, like today, they slowed down, just to remember. After breakfast, Elena handed Julian a letter. "I wrote this the night you were unconscious. Never thought I'd actually get to give it to you." Julian opened it, reading slowly. "Julian, if you don't wake up, I might go on living, but it would be a life missing the best part of me. If you wake up, let me love you, properly, fully, without hesitation." He looked up, said nothing, just pulled her close, holding her tightly. "You've done exactly what you wrote," he whispered. "And so have you," she said, resting her head on his shoulder. They didn't need a fairy tale ending, because for them, each day together, no matter how ordinary, was already something extraordinary.